Hello, everyone. My name is Keith Washington, as I just said a minute ago, and I really appreciate everyone taking the time to attend this webinar titled Improve Your Portal Security with Two-Factor Authentication. And this is a really important topic, and I can tell it's important to you by the number of people who signed up and those who attended. So I really appreciate you joining this. So we have a large crowd of people. I imagine that we may have questions at the end. A couple of things before we get started proper. First of all, I am recording this webinar. That means that you don't have to take a lot of notes unless you want to. It also means that you'll have access to all of this webinar, including the presentation slides. As soon as we're done, or shortly after we're done, you'll receive an email thanking you for attending and providing you with a link to this webinar. Also, all of our webinars are located on our website, cpasitesolutions.com. And if you've missed some of the other topics that we've discussed over the past 6 months or a year, feel free to go and look in our resources section to find webinars that may be of interest to you. Second, you can hear me, but I can't hear you. So if you have questions, you'll be able to ask them in the little questions box that should be available to you with the GoToWebinar panel. All you have to do is type in your question, and that time during this presentation, I will answer your questions either by voice, or I will answer them in the questions box to everyone, or if it's a specific question for your situation, I'll respond directly to you. For this particular webinar, we'll also leave a little time, or put a little time in the end to take questions. Sometimes we don't do that because of time. We think that this webinar will not be a long webinar, but an important one, because we want to make sure you know how to use two-factor authentication with your secure firm portal. Lastly, before we get started, there should be a survey, a 2-question or 3-question survey as you exit GoToWebinar. I'd really appreciate it if you would answer that survey, and it helps us provide better service to you over time. So as we get ready for tax season and the fall season, and whether you're doing business taxes with an October deadline or gearing up for this coming year, we want you to know about some of the things we have done, and one of the most important things we've done to improve your portal security. So today we're going to talk about a number of different things, including, first of all, what is two-factor authentication? I will guarantee or bet that every one of you use it, or multi-factor authentication, in a lot of different when you access a lot of different systems, but you may not have known that's what it's called. So we're going to understand the definition of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of two-factor authentication. We'll talk about how we are doing this for the Secure Firm portal, and then we're going to show a demo. It's really, we call this a deminar because Colin will provide a demonstration of how we actually have enabled it and how you can enable two-factor authentication for your firm. We added this new feature primarily to improve this level of security of your secure firm portal. As you guys know, there's more and more attempts at catching data, and we wanted to add this level of security, it's almost required, and reduce the chance of unauthorized access to your client's files or to your files. So it's really important, and what we tried to do is make it, first of all, easy to implement and easy to understand so that you don't have too much difficulty in setting this up. So please, I encourage you to pay attention to this particular thing, and then also make sure that if you have questions, you ask them early. For CPA, for our Secure Firm portal, actually two-factor authentication is really an extra layer of security for access to any digital system that requires a user to enter a unique piece of information in addition to their password and username to access this service. So it really is 2 factors. Instead of one thing, your password, which most of us enter to get into our systems, it's 2 things. That's why it's called two-factor authentication. It's usually something you know, which is your password, and something you have. And for our system, we provide a combination lock approach to reduce the chance of unauthorized access to your client's files and documentations. you really have to understand this, and I think everyone who's on this knows that passwords alone aren't protecting us. I actually, and this is not related, but I, like many of you, have logged in to Equifax.com to see whether or not I was affected by the loss of data or the stealing of data, and I got the message back that says, you, unfortunately, it looks like you may be affected, and we'll send you an email with information in the coming days. And that's really disturbing to me. And the same thing is happening, you know, across the world, where information is really, hackers are constantly trying to attack systems and get access to information to help compromise or use that information to make money. At the end of the day, it's about people making money, and passwords alone aren't protecting us. I didn't realize this until I studied it, that cyber attackers can test billions of password combinations in a second. That's amazing to me. And 90% of employee passwords can be cracked in 6 hours. That's amazing to me as well. So if you're running if you have your firm or you're part of a firm, think about the number of people in your firm, whether it be just you or you know, lots of people who are involved in your firm. 90% of those passwords can be cracked in six hours, and 65% of the people use the same password everywhere. And if you add me into that group, the number grows, because I know that I use the same password or some combination of the same password in many different places. Also, I think if you remember maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they started, banks and other important systems started adding security questions. And it's determines that that's easy to find out too. They ask the same questions: what's your mother's maiden name? What's your, you know, who was your favorite teacher in grade school? And these are questions that can be easily found out by inquiring. And if you spend any time studying this, like I have, you'll see that sophisticated people have come up with ways to make this easy for them to get access to your system. And again, the purpose is to commit fraud. And to prevent, you know, and to cause your clients or your firm to lose money. Two-factor authentication provides additional benefits in addition to a password. Number one, it's improved security. So this unique one-time password for every transactional login attempt, or this additional piece of code or additional piece of information that is unique to your situation. And in our case, we ask you for a PIN code, and then we tie that PIN code to your computer location or your IP address. That kind of locks in that security to prevent someone from some other place from being able to get access to the system. It reduces data theft, which is very important. I was looking at stats, and you guys who are in the tax business know that the IRS has been dealing with this, and I was reading the IRS.gov, and they spend a lot of time talking about how great they did in 2017 in reducing the amount of fraud. But in 2016, by March, 42,000 tax returns with $227 million in fraudulent tax returns. And who have clients deal with this on a regular basis. And so in gaining access to Social Security numbers or IRS EIN numbers are really a quick way for fraud to be committed in tax. It provides increased flexibility and productivity, primarily for your firm, so it allows different users to securely log in. So it keeps different users with the access to log in, but it protects the system at the same time, rather than the old days where we would just share the same password. And it reduces your cost. Ultimately, as a group of professionals, this particular implementation that we've done helps to reduce the chance of someone illegally gaining access to your system. And if they do, it can cost you a lot of money in order to deal with notifications, calling the FBI, trying to make sure that your people weren't hacked, and it could, you know, potentially lost clients. So we really just want to point out how important this particular component is. Our Secure Firm Portal, the CPA Site Solutions Secure Firm Portal, and I'm going to walk through this, and then we're going to show it to you, and then I'm going to talk about it again. Requires really 3 steps. Number one, we need you to enable two-factor authentication at the firm level. That means your firm administrator will need to turn on two-factor authentication, and that turns on the feature for all of your firm users and all of your client users. So once you turn it on, it cannot be turned off. So make sure that you understand the process and you understand what you're actually doing when you turn it on. And Colin will show you how we've tried to make sure that that's easy. But once you turn it on, you enter a unique authentication code. We're going to send you an authentication code to your email address. You type in that authentication code, and that computer or that location is now authenticated to log into the Secure Firm portal. That's a one-time authentication code that has to be entered, and then we bind that computer or that IP address. It's not just a computer, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but that IP address to your email address, and those two factors provide access to the Secure Firm portal. Once you do that, no additional information is required. You just use the Secure Firm portal as you normally would do. However, if you change your computer, or if you go to a different location, say for instance you have a laptop and you do some work at home and then you do some work in the office, you will have to authenticate both locations, two locations, but once you do that, those two locations are now authenticated. So it's an extra step, but it's a one-time or two-time step depending on how many places you like to use the Secure Firm portal. If you're a person who's bouncing from Starbucks to Starbucks using the Secure Firm portal, by the way, I encourage you not to do that because Starbucks Wi-Fi is not encrypted. But make sure it's not secure, but just make sure that you know that you will have to enter that authentication code. Now, Colin is going to walk through how to enable Secure Firm portal as a firm administrator and then as a user, whether it be a firm user or a client user. Please note that your clients will all have to authenticate the first time they use the Secure Firm portal. And I'm pointing this out to you now because a lot of times this causes a lot of angst during January, February, and March. And the reason is because we need to make sure you have a valid email address. And so I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but Colin is going to walk through a demonstration. Now I see already we have at least a few number of questions, so I will try to answer them online and then feed them back to the group after Colin does his demonstration. So let me just turn the presentation over to Colin so he can show you how easy you can set up two-factor authentication for your Secure Firm portal.
Thanks, Keith. So my name's Colin Delphia. I'm one of the product developers that worked on this two-factor authentication feature. And I'm just going to go ahead and walk through turning it on for you. And we're going to take a look at both the admin perspective as well as one of your client perspectives. So the first thing that we have to do is to log in as an administrative user to the firm. So I'm just going to log in here. And the first thing that you might notice when you log in is this new blue information banner. This is something that we put in there for all of the firm users to see, administrative users to see. And only for admins. This gives you a quick announcement saying that we've released a new security feature, as well as a link right here to easily access and enable the feature. So we're going to go ahead and follow this link. And this is going to bring you to the next screen. This screen is going to give you a little bit more information on two-factor authentication and what it requires. And how it works. One thing that is very important that we outline multiple times on this page actually is that in order to enable two-factor authentication, we first have to have that first factor of authentication, your email address, and we got to make sure that you have access to that. Next, we're going to go ahead and look at the information notices right here. These are to confirm that you understand that when you enable this feature, it is instantly going to take effect, as well as once it is turned on, we're not going to be able to turn it off. We want to continually make the portal more secure for your firm and not backtrack on security. Now, when you do get to this page, we are going to send out a verification code to not only confirm that, or mainly to confirm that you do have access to your administrative account. And you can see right here, this is going to be the email that the code is being sent to. So I'm going to go ahead and check my email inbox here, and I'm going to see that I just got a portal notification. So in this notification, it's just going to announce that here's your code, and in nice bold text, there is going to be our code, our 6-digit code. Every time that you get sent one of these notices, it is going to be a different code, so that just increases security every time it's different. So after I've copied that code, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to enter that code into this field. And as you can see, our information box has now turned green, showing that everything has been enabled and we're ready to turn this on. And the next thing that we got to do is just turn on the feature. So we're going to go ahead and click enable. And we'll get a little green success message up here stating that it has been turned on. At this point, there is going to be no difference for usage throughout the portal. Everything's going to be the same for you. However, whenever you log in from a new location or new computer, you are going to get prompted with a very similar message that is going to ask you to re-authenticate. If we go ahead and take a look at our security features, we can see now that our two-factor authentication has been turned on, along with many other features that we have enabled by default for you to really make sure that the portal is secure for you. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look and see what it looks like when a client user first logs in. And once we get to the screen, it's going to inform you that we've sent an email with the verification code to the following address. So if we go back to our email, we can see that we've received a new code. In here, it's going to have a bold code that is easily readable. We're going to go back to the portal verification screen, and we're just going to paste that code in. Now you can just enter it manually, or you can paste it if it'd be easier. If you didn't receive the code, you can also choose to resend it, which will resend it to that same email address. So we're going to go ahead and submit. And now this computer in this location has been verified. And on the next login, I won't have to go through that process. All further use of the portal is going to be exactly the same. The clients will be able to use the file vault, access their account information, and change that just like they would normally. All right, I'm going to go ahead and send it back over to you, Keith.
So I want to point out a couple of things, and I said this was an easy demo, and it doesn't take more than a minute to do it, but I just want to point out a couple of things that maybe you may or may not missed. First of all, this is very important. We think it's important to help improve your security of your client data. But importantly, once you turn two-factor authentication on, you can't turn it off. So don't play around with it. That's why we made sure that we ask a couple of questions as a firm admin. We check to make sure that your email address is valid, and you before you're actually turning it on. Next, the two-factor authentication works for a given IP address. If you change locations or computers, as I talked about, you will need to re-authenticate. Once you do that, you're okay for that particular IP address. Each user will need to have access to the email account associated with your portal login. This is something that we become concerned about because we want to make sure that your clients have access to their email. Because what they'll do is they will try to use the portal, and then they'll ask for it says, I'll send you a code to your email, and they go, I don't know what my email address is. Now, this doesn't happen that often because this is the same email address that they use to log into their portal today. So they should be able to get to that. But if they don't have access to their email, you're going to have to give them another account. So just make sure that every client user has access to their email account associated with their portal login. And lastly, if someone doesn't access the portal after you've enabled two-factor authentication for 90 consecutive days, they'll have to re-authenticate. This is another security feature that we thought about. Let's make sure that this is ready for tax season. So anytime you don't log in for 90 days, so next tax season we'll ask them to re-authenticate to prevent or reduce the chance of unauthorized access. So it's really that simple, that you turn it on, you make sure that your firm has access, all of your firm users have access, and then you go in and you make sure that all of your clients have access. So there are a couple of questions that have come up already, and we're going to take the time to take some questions about two-factor authentication. And I'll read a couple of them out loud. First of all, the first question that came in is the Secure Firm portal considered in the cloud? Why or why not was the first question. The Secure Firm portal is hosted at Amazon Web Services. It is a cloud-based provider. It is not hosted on our own servers in-house. It's hosted by Amazon Web Services, and it really doesn't matter where it's hosted, but it just to let you know, AWS hosts our Secure Firm portal, and so the files are stored securely at that location. AWS or anyone else it does all the best they can to prevent unauthorized use. This helps prevent unauthorized use. Second, which is really, really important, and don't hesitate to ask more questions, do you have a suggestion for how we communicate this change to our clients who are currently using the Secure Firm portal? Great question. Each of you have the ability, and maybe we'll add a newsletter article to it in the fall, have the ability to send out an email through your email marketing system to all of your clients. And I would suggest that you tell your clients, you send a quick email letting them know that, starting within whenever you decide, if you want to do this by the end of September, you can say starting October 1, we're going to add a level of security. So please note, the first time you log in, you'll have to enter a PIN number that's based on your email address. If you have problems or questions, please contact us. Most of your clients won't read that until tax season or when they need it, so you may still have some people calling you, but some will read it. But all you have to do is let them know, and we can help you. We'll work on maybe providing some materials in a newsletter to you so that you can help communicate this to your clients through the email marketing system. So what we're going to do is take questions now. Someone just asked, can I create that letter for to the clients as a form letter? We certainly can do that, and we'll be happy to do that. So we'll take some time to take questions now and probably answer all of the questions. Well, I'll see if we have a bunch of questions, but if not, I'll answer them online through the system. Okay, I had a really good, a couple of good questions. I hope the people don't mind if I point these out as an audio. Is there a limit to the number of IP addresses associated with an email address for two-factor authentication? I'm not, Colin, I don't know if you know the answer to that question. And if there is, I'll make sure we get that answer if we think there's a limit. Do you think there's a limit, Colin?
Currently, there is no limit set up.
Okay.
So you can log in
So
as, you can authenticate with as many locations as you'd like.
great, great. And I had a question. I'll see if I can see if I can say this in the right way. There's a couple of people who asked the question, why are we doing that? Have clients requested it? And I'll answer it in this way. Number one, our team did not make two-factor authentication required. You don't have to turn it on. I'd like to make it required, but we've made it optional because we want you to make that decision. Ultimately, maybe it's next year or sometime, in 2018, we may make it required as we watch security problems happen more and more. But I'm not making it required. You can decide not to enable two-factor authentication for your firm. I'm encouraging you to turn on two-factor authentication for your firm. And it's not a request by clients. It's not a cool feature. It's a feature to reduce unauthorized access to your system. Because if we know that there's an email address, if, for instance, someone got a hold of one of your client's email addresses and figured out the password and got into your system, they can steal at least all of that client's personal information. If they got into your firm, if they happen to know your firm password, so for instance, many firms have this email address, firmuser@ or firm@ and then the password is password123 or a strong password that you use. If a hacker could get access to that firm information and download all of your client files, that puts you at risk. By associating your firm with an IP address and a password, it reduces the risk of unauthorized access to your client information. So again, we did not make it required. It's something that we encourage everyone to do, even though it's another layer, another step, another thing that people have to do. It's unfortunately the world in which we live in today. I'm just looking to see what the next question is. Okay, so there's a question about the IP address determined by both the specific computer and a specific physical location. And I think the answer to that is yes. However, it depends on the way your office is set up, as Colin explained it to me. It's certainly your device, but it's really about your IP address. So I think, Colin, you can probably help me. If I have two different devices connected to the same IP address, do I have to authenticate twice?
No, mainly the authentication looks for the IP address. So if your office uses one global IP address and you authenticate, you're going to be authenticated for all of the different devices that you use with that one account.
Okay, great. Let me see. I see a couple of other questions. One is about, and if you can answer, and maybe I don't have all the answers. If clients signed up for their newsletter, would adding two-factor affect how their clients receive the notification of the newsletter? I think the answer is no to those clients. So we have people who don't use the portal but get the newsletter. The clients who get the newsletter don't have to do anything with two-factor authentication.
Correct. They're two separate systems.
Right.
The two-factor authentication is only for the portal, not for the newsletter system.
And then we have a question about VPNs, about virtual private networks, which I can say I don't know the answer to that either. If you know the answer to that, Colin, if you can see that question. If not, we'll just give us a few minutes and see if I can get that.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that question.
So there's a question about VPNs which changed their IP address. The person who asked that question, or to the group, we'll create an FAQ for that question. It's a good question as well. So there was a question about the code is sent in an email. Could it be sent to a smartphone as an SMS text? We did not add that at this point because we know what that email address is. We do not have the phone numbers as required. We know that that email address was associated with a login to the portal. So we are only going back to that email address with that same information. And the last question that I'll do through audio, who should I reach out about obtaining the form letter for letting clients know the purpose for TFA? We're going to create that form letter. We will send that out to this group as well as all of our customers. So, by the way, I encourage you to take a look at the newsletters as they come in because we try to provide information in that. But we will send out a form letter or provide a form letter for all of our customers and maybe provide a link to it from the portal. So just to let you know, because we are past our time, that ends the audio portion of this webinar. And we will just stay online and answer questions online as much as we need, and we'll stay on as long as we need. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to take a look at the two-factor authentication on the Secure Forum portal. Really appreciate you being clients of ours, and really appreciate all of the support that you provide us and all the feedback that we get, even in this webinar. As I pointed out before, the webinar has been recorded. You will receive a copy of this webinar so that you don't have to worry about taking notes. There'll be a survey at the end of this webinar. I encourage you please to answer that survey to help us do a better job, continue to improve in our webinar. And just to let you know that if you have any questions or you need something more from us, please don't hesitate to call us at 800-896-4500.